The book of Ecclesiastes, verse 1 and 2. Ship your grain across the sea. After many days, you may receive a return. Verse 2. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. So, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So I guess I should say, how's everybody doing today? So I just got done watching the movie Moana 2. Oh yeah, this is background footage from when I was playing this game called Nino Kuni 2, or I think that's how you say it. It's like, the whole anime video game or movie franchise, right? So I went to the theaters and I saw the new Moana, and okay, So I don't want to like put a whole bunch of spoilers in here. I think I'm going to talk about it a little bit, then I'll put some spoilers. But I want to say this though. Overall, this movie I thought was actually pretty good. I mean, it's like the expectations. It's like, again, you're talking about a sequel, right? So it's like it's only going to be able to go so far. But to be honest with you, the movie was pretty cool. And I did overall like it quite a bit. Because I'm just watching some of these cutscenes from this video game I was playing. I guess I just don't remember this game too well. Tell you the truth, I've actually never finished this game, but it is real cool, right? But Moana, it was a pretty good movie. And I'll tell you the truth, I do love going to the theater and stuff. Now, I used to go a whole bunch of times when I was younger, but I haven't been to the theater that many times. Like, I kind of saw some of the Harry Potter, like the 7th movie, part 2, or whatever it's called, the Deadly Hallows part 2. So I saw some of that. I saw some of the Wild Robot. I also saw some movie called the Beekeeper, I think it was called, with Jason Statham. Again, they weren't bad movies, right? I mean, but the theater's a pretty fun place to go to. Yeah, in this movie, it was, in my opinion, it was a pretty solid. So, it did have some pretty good songs in it. I'll be real. It was, again, it has some of this, now look, I understand. It's good that they make movies for children and very young teenagers and stuff too. It's important, right? I think some of the positives and negatives is that it did feel a little bit kidified at times, but I understand that, some of these Disney movies Disney is really meant for younger people to begin with, but I mean, it had some pretty good morals to the story. It was pretty decent. Again, it looked nice. It sounded nice. It didn't have any of that, maybe I'm wrong, right? It didn't have any of that quote unquote all that woke crap or whatever. That wasn't really that I couldn't think of or see in the movie. And it had a decent number of traditional values and morals. And then it did kind of at times remind me of Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, but tell you the truth, I mean, the Horizon Zero Dawn, especially the first game, was a pretty good game. And the second game, it's again you're making a sequel. I mean, how much can you really expect, right? Not a ton, but it still followed up pretty good. And I did find some Christian perspectives and themes in it. I mean, because there's a Christian channel, I always talk about Christianity, right? But yeah, I don't want to go too heavy into spoilers. I'm gonna go into spoilers in a minute here. But I was overall pretty impressed, and I would probably give this a pretty decent number. So I think, again, I'm not sure what the scale of numbers are. Honestly, I feel like I'd probably give this movie an 8 out of 10. I mean, it depends on like the standards people use. I think this is a pretty solid movie. For what it had available, what it could give for what I had available. It was overall pretty good, to be honest. So, I mean, I definitely would recommend it. Obviously, you probably need to see the first one. It's not like mandatory, but a lot of it doesn't make any sense otherwise. And you should watch the beginning ones, right? But yeah, I think this is a decent movie. I would recommend it. Okay, so I'm gonna go into some more spoilers now here too. Okay, now this is your warning, right? Whoever might be out there, I don't even know who's gonna watch this, but it's currently about 7 minutes. Okay, so if I go more into spoilers now, and again, I don't want to just ruin the whole plot either, but I'll talk about a few spoilers. I'll try to put some try to find some of the Christian examples from the spoilers. So just like the first one, it talked a lot about destiny, and it talked a lot about fate. And like she like calls out to like the ocean or something, right? And it also, again, like, I wasn't necessarily looking for it per se. I just wanted to have a fun time and just maybe learn something. But there was a couple of like Christian references from like the Old Testament, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. Now, I'm not gonna say it's like one for one that way, but so there was this example. So basically, they're like, so in like the Bible, like the Old Testament, you have the Israelites. They're traveling, right? And then, like in holiness, God put this like pillar of like light or pillar of fire out in the sky, and the Israelites, or again, maybe I'm not saying the names correctly. I mean, the people, in holiness, the people of God back then, they were following after this pillar of light and fire in the sky, seeking out this destination, in holiness where God had them going. And in this Moana movie, there was moments where like she and her team of people were in this like little raft, and they basically were following this pillar of fire in the sky, and it felt like it was like almost like one for one. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I didn't really. I mean, I was just gonna watch. It was just a good movie, right? I just wanted an excuse to watch a cool movie. But I saw that moment. I was like, man, this is like right out of the Bible, and I mean, I thought it was really cool. So they have her. Oh yeah, and then they had some other moments too. So like they had like this prophecy, and then this moment where she was going to become like this new big. I cannot pronounce the name. I'd have to look up. I probably couldn't pronounce it if I read it. But she's become this like super big like leader. I think it starts with like the letter M, where that's like the place they're looking for. And she sees like this lightning comes down, and just like she sees like a massive vision and like some kind of a prophecy, and it was like it was pretty cool, to be honest. And again, it did have some moments that I think if you were a person of the faith, you could either relate to, or you could find some kind of reasoning and understanding behind it. So that was a pretty cool moment. And then it talked about how, so there was a few times where she had to make some really hard decisions. Now this movie, it felt like it was maybe a little bit short, to be honest, at times. I mean, again, I know it's like made for like, they probably had to purposely do some stuff to make it more like kid friendly. It's like an hour and 40 minutes long. They didn't want to make it like 3 hours long. This isn't like Avatar or something, right? But there was a moment where, before she was going to go on this journey, again, she had to like figure out how to deal with all this crap. And like Moana was struggling with making these hard decisions, and like it was pretty intense, to be honest. Like some of these Disney movies have pretty dramatic, pretty intense scenes where she's trying to figure out her way in life, and then she didn't want to let people down, but like but she felt like she had to go on this journey, to try to help her people. And it was pretty strong moment. And there was another moment where the Moana series, it does show a lot of trials and tests, kind of like the first one, right? They took a lot of moments from the first movie, kind of did another version, on top of which again. Where her and her team of people on her little raft were trying to, she's trying to figure out her way. And she gets to this island where her original people were at, and she couldn't figure it out. She was struggling. She got kind of like down in the dumps a little bit, and she wanted to make progress forward, but she just was struggling to find her way. So again, no, she talks to her her friend Maui, and basically Maui cheers her up, and then her friends apparently they were working on this raft, and they built her a new raft, and she managed to get through it, but she was really stressed. She was stressed and she was struggling through it. She couldn't figure out how to get through it. And the ocean. At another point, the ocean was dying, or she couldn't communicate with the ocean. Again, she always has these struggles, but the thing is, she always manages to find a way to push through, despite the struggles. It's from the Bible. It talks about how a righteous man may fall, but 7 times he rises again. And it's like a hero, right? And you're gonna go through a trial and a test, and you're gonna get through it. And then you're gonna go through another one, but the thing is, you're always gonna get through it. Or you're gonna die, right? And then you're gonna go to heaven, or then someone else will take your spot, right? You're always gonna be okay. I think there is a layer of truth to that. And there was another moment in the series where, or not in the series, in the movie where, they have these quote unquote gods or whatever. Again, it's fantasy, right? We know in holiness only God is God, and these other so-called quote unquote gods, they're not real. But it's just a movie, right? But there was another really powerful, cool moment where basically she's talking to this other being that ended up helping her out, and she basically says this phrase about how basically you're always gonna find your way through, and or if you can't figure out where to go, or you can't figure out what to do, basically again, I don't have a recording of it because obviously I just saw it, but basically to let go, or let yourself get lost or something, and that will help you to find your way through or something. It's kind of the idea of you're going, obviously the movie has a lot of storms, but you're going through all these storms, and it's sometimes you just have to you have to embrace the storm, and you just have to kind of let a little level of chaos just kind of let it run its course. Or a lot of people might say, they call it the new phrase, let the Lord Jesus Christ take the wheel, kind of take your hand off the wheel. And that's obviously not when you're driving. You don't want to kill yourself, right? But I mean, the idea is, let God handle the direction, let him be in the driver's seat, you go in the passenger seat. And sometimes you can't control the storm, you can't control your life, you can't deal with all this stuff. Sometimes you gotta let go, right? You gotta maybe just embrace getting lost a little bit, and then maybe in a sense you'll find your way. And it was just some kind of, I can't remember exactly what it said. I don't have a script for it, right? But it was also a pretty cool moment. And I do feel again, it was a pretty overall well-made, decent movie. And then towards the end, basically Moana gets kind of resurrected almost. She's almost a messianic figure, and basically she's supposed to be dead. Maui comes there, and all the spirit of her ancestors come by, and she gets some kind of a golden powered demigod tattoo. I mean, I'm not sure. Some of the stuff wasn't very clear. I think she's basically supposed to become a demigod. It's kind of a half god, half human, or it's obviously not real, right? But it was a cool moment. And I tell you, okay, so if I'm being a little bit more critical, so obviously they wanted to bring her back. To tell you the truth, I feel the movie, to be honest, I feel could have honestly been better, in my opinion, if they just like let Moana die at the end. Because like that would have been a plot twist that people wouldn't have seen. I understand it's a little bit dark, but like, her choosing to sacrifice herself as a hero, I do. She did sacrifice herself, and she did technically die, or she was in a death-like state for like a couple of minutes. But I do feel like the movie probably would have been better if they just let her go, because sometimes it's kind of a hard lesson, right? Is that you sacrifice yourself, you take a chance, and maybe sometimes you can't always win. Sometimes you can't always win in life, but it's kind of like the whole Star Wars like ending. How like, okay, I don't want to go spoilers. I mean, honestly, if you've seen, half the people haven't even seen that movie. I only remember like 20% of that movie. Honestly, I can't even remember what happened in the other parts. I've seen it like twice, and I still can't remember it. Basically, like, she comes back to life, and it's like, I get it. There was no real justification, and sometimes the problem that I feel like is that there's no real, again, like, I understand, but like I'm not trying to be super critical, but like she didn't, like, you don't have to pay a price at the same time too. And sometimes when like you bring a character back, there needs to be a price to pay or something, right? But it's like, she basically wins no matter what. And again, I feel like, the idea of fate and destiny, this stuff is very important. There's a lot of fate and destiny. Basically, she's expected to go on this journey. And the thing, it's like, here's the thing, right? You kind of just presume that she's just going to win and just get through it. And you kind of presume that none of the characters are really ever going to suffer or die. It's like when you watch like the new DC, like the Arrowverse. It's like, not a spoiler alert, but like, nobody really dies in the Arrowverse. Like, everybody, like, 7 people die in the Arrowverse, and they just come back. They just keep coming back, right? They're never gone. So like, death doesn't matter, right? And like, even trying to win, the heroes never really have to sacrifice anything, and they never really have to give up anything. It's just a fun, like, cute movie, but there's no consequence, no real consequence in the series. And it's like, without any kind of stakes in a series like this, it's like there's no real reward. And I'm not saying that I want to suffer and die, or I want terrible things to happen to me, right? But sometimes the truth is there are consequences to actions. And I think this is something that Disney could have taught people. And I'm not trying to be super critical in this whole series. And I did like the movie, right? I do feel like there should have been more consequences. So it's like, okay, and then also that like that little, that girl, like godlike girl or something. And then in the very end, there's some spoilers. Like in the very end credits, like she basically does get caught by this like Zeus-like character or something, binds her with like lightning. So she has to pay a little bit of consequences for her actions. But I do kind of wish in the movie there would have been more consequences for the hero's actions, or more of like a moral dilemma, or some kind of like sometimes, maybe let Moana struggle, and then like let her fail or something. It's like you don't always have to win as a character, and like if you're gonna have fate and destiny, it's like sometimes there has to be consequences. It doesn't teach people, right? But so that's again, I'm not trying to be like super critical, and I know this is kind of meant for younger people. But you gotta teach people sometimes too. Because otherwise, you basically believe you're invincible. And the truth is that none of us are invincible. We can all suffer consequences. Death is a very harsh reality, but that'll come for us all one day. And then we have our soul, right? It's like people are gonna go to hell. Some people will go to heaven if you're a true born-again Christian through the blood of Christ. And if you're not, you're gonna go to hell. And on this earth, there is many consequences. Few people believe they're ever gonna pay the penalties, but we all eventually do. And I paid many consequences myself. Let's just prolong this a little bit more. So that is something I kind of wish, again, obviously it's like criticism, right? It's important to give a little bit of some pushback to. Again, like overall, it was a good movie. I just kind of wish there would have been more consequences. Because it's like again, like that's the whole destiny thing. You have to win. You have to succeed. and there's like no real penalties. It's like, if there's no stakes, what's the reward? How fulfilling is the reward really if there's no consequence? Like, you're playing a big video game, right? You have to make some hard choices sometimes, and those hard choices have pretty harsh consequences. And sometimes, no matter what you do, there is harsh consequences. And again, it's a hard reality, but sometimes that's life. So I wish they would have done a little bit more hard consequences. Honestly, I mean, again, I don't necessarily think that Moana necessarily had to die at the end, but I feel like they give her these like demigod powers and they bring her back. There should have been like a massive consequence. Maybe they could have made her like binding her soul to becoming some kind of like a guardian, or she had to maybe like forcing her to bind her to some kind of a thing, or they could have done some other series of things to. Or again, like, a lot of times in these types of series, like, you have a hero, for example, like, you get like a nasty scar across your face or something, right? Like, I don't want these things to happen to me. It's just it's just part of like, these like tropes and stuff. So I kind of wish they would have been like a nasty scar across her face, or she would have lost, maybe like she would have lost something very precious and dear to her, or she would have had to suffer terribly for it, or some kind of a negative consequence. Because they did basically bring her back to life. In holiness, unless God himself truly resurrects you from the dead, I do believe the power of giving people life like that after their death, there should be some kind of a negative consequence. And maybe the character doesn't have to die, but the character should have to suffer, or some kind of major, key, critical, negative consequence should happen. Or maybe they suck the life force, maybe someone on her family. It's like, again, this isn't like some M-rated, but maybe her like little sister had to suffer terribly, or someone in her, like, maybe her dad's life was sacrificed for it. It's like there should be some kind of consequences, but she gets like a full pass. And I'm not trying to make this like a whole video, right? But I also do feel like consequences are important, especially in like, in storytelling and entertainment and movies and TV shows and stuff. But again, overall, there was some it was pretty good storytelling, and it was pretty interesting. I felt like it was a little bit predictable at times, but it was still pretty cool, and I did have a good time. So yeah, I probably would recommend it. You probably want to see the first one. Yeah, I don't know how many of these I'm gonna make. I mean, maybe if I go to the movie theater, I'll just make a video or something every time, or I don't know. It depends on the movie I see. Yeah, I have no idea who's even gonna watch this, to be honest. But yeah, I would just say, you'll be wise, right? And these types of movies, these Disney movies, right? I know the Disney company's kind of garbage sometimes, but they do sometimes make some good stuff. This is a pre-existing IP, right? And it teaches you some pretty hard lessons. Sometimes this stuff is difficult to understand. Oh yeah. There was one other aspect. So, again, some of these thoughts just kind of came to my mind. Not when, like, in holiness, sometimes I pray to God and I ask him for, like, his wisdom. Sometimes if I'm going to watch entertainment, I ask him to show me some kind of, let me learn something. I don't really know exactly. And sometimes I don't know, right, why I do or don't do things, but perhaps he did show me something. I mean, I have no idea, right? Or maybe I just saw something and I thought about it. So basically, like, and I don't think this has anything to do with the movie itself. It's just something I see. So, also kind of going back to the Bible a little bit. I don't know how long is this even for me? 20, it's like 20, either 20 or 24 minutes. And this wasn't directly in the movie, but it did remind me. So, like, basically, Moana, I think her dad or maybe some other people out there, and she was sitting out there, and she was looking at, like, basically, you have the ocean, right? But you're looking up at the stars, and there's, like, tens of thousands of hypothetical stars out there. And I was just kind of thinking in my mind, like, it's really humbling, right? How many stars there are that exist. Every single star you see out in the sky is like a sun. I think this is like basically science, right? is a sun. There could be like 500,000 stars. I mean, I don't even know how many you could see in like a really crystal clear night. Every one of those is like a solar system, which has a full set of planets. And it could be like hundreds of billions of these. I mean, I don't actually even know, right? And these kind of things, they boggle your brain. It's like, in holiness, why God would he created this earth, and he created this specific place, it means, but there's like potentially like hundreds of billions of like solar systems. And there's like all of heaven, which is probably like 1,000 times bigger than the material universe. Things that like your brain can't comprehend. Like, I don't really understand, right? And he's like the wonders of God and his power. And it's also really humbling. And it shows you how mortal you truly are. And like, just in movies like this, and it's like this, it reminds me of times of like even certain video games or certain aspects of reality. And then obviously, if like from the Bible, like, basically God was talking to Abram, became Abraham, and basically it's like, look at all the stars in the sky. That's like, it's like you can't try. Either God in heaven's like, go ahead and count them for me. And Abraham looks up at the stars and he's like, I can't do it. I'm a little paraphrasing, right? Like, I can't do it. He's like that, and God tells Abraham, like, that's the number of descendants you're going to have in the future. So many, you can't even count them. That's how much I'm going to bless you. And it's like, in holiness, God created all these stars. He built all these things that my brain can't truly understand. And also, like, why did he do that? And then, like, some other aspects of this movie was they did show a lot of respect to like your ancestors, and it did have a lot of traditional roles and honor. And so like what else was there to it? And I know that the main character is is a female and everything. And there's nothing really inherently wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having like a female protagonist. It's like, I mean, I know that a woman isn't really supposed to be like, that type of a person, but it does occasionally, stuff like that might happen occasionally. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. I mean, I know it's supposed to be that like a male is supposed to be the one who's supposed to do those things, but it is what it is at the end of the day, right? Sometimes, heroes can come in all different types of shapes and sizes and stuff. Like, it is what it is. It's possible, right? It was Moana. It's like, maybe like fate and destiny. I mean, who's to say, right? In holiness, maybe the right hand of God is responsible for these things. So, again, okay, I'm going to end this here. Let me know what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it, or what do you think about Moana? And what are some of your thoughts on these different Christian ideas? And I mean, I guess enjoy your movies and stuff. Thanks for watching. God is good.